Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Gangrene Against the World podcast. I'm Allan Simon. The New York Jets have fallen to 0-2 on the 2025 season after they lose 30-10 to the Buffalo Bills. It was an embarrassing, lifeless, and demoralizing loss for the Jets. They take any goodwill that they had after their offensive performance last week against the Steelers. They throw that all away. Justin Fields is atrocious in this game. The offense could not run the ball, and after, being shut down a few times and a terrible turnover by Fields, they then can't throw the ball downfield, and on we go. The defense made a lot of mistakes once again. This defense has now given up 30 points in each of the first two games. They certainly helped the Bills' cause with a lot of penalties. The most notable penalty, of course, came from Michael Clemens early on in this game. They have a chance on 3rd and 19 to get off the field, but Michael Clemens does what Michael Clemens does. He has no control over his emotions. The hit on Josh Allen was a little late, maybe, and it was a little high. It did not hit his helmet necessarily, but in those situations, if you lunge at a quarterback, they're going to call it, especially if the ball's already been out of his hands. And on 3rd and 19, you have to pull up. You have to pull up on that play. There is no positives from landing a big hit on Josh Allen in that moment when you have an opportunity to get off the field. It was a selfish play. I know Aaron Glenn was screaming at him on the sidelines, but frankly, Michael Clemens should not be playing in this game. There is a case to be made that he shouldn't have made the team out of camp, and he continues to be exactly who he's been his entire career. You have other young defensive linemen who can step in, and overall, a real just disaster for this team. Michael Clemens is an easy one to pick on, but you can go on and on down the line. Let's start with Justin Fields. Justin Fields has a horrendous game. He has one nice long 27-yard run at the end of the half. That is the end of his highlight reel. He just looked lost. He looked like a player who was not all the way in the game. He had time to throw. There were multiple occasions where he had guys open, and he just doesn't let go of the ball. He then leaves the game at the end of the game with a concussion. So we will see, or at least he was in concussion protocol. We will see if this means he's going to miss any time. And Tyrod Taylor comes in and is more productive on offense in his, half of a quarter than Justin Fields was for the entire game. They get a touchdown that doesn't mean a lot. It means something to Jeremy Ruckert. Ruckert's first career touchdown here in his 4th season with the Jets. But there's a good chance Tyrod Taylor is the starting quarterback for the Jets next week. Overall, Justin Fields, 3 for 11, 27 yards, averaging 2.5 yards per completion. He didn't turn the ball over through the air. He did have a terrible fumble on their response drive after Buffalo scores. They put the ball on the ground. The defense does hold Buffalo to 3 points, but it doesn't matter because there was not a lot of stops coming the Jets' way after that. Again, Fields has 49 rushing yards, 27 comes on one long play at the end of the half where they still can't get points, even though they got that to midfield. It was a terrible performance for Fields. That is Fields' worst start in over 3 years. This was a horrendous game for him. Is it just that Buffalo had the perfect game plan, that they didn't let him run too much, that they clamped down on the run early on? And then, just made him throw the ball, which he just couldn't do comfortably today? I'm not sure, but that is not the performance of a player that is coming off of a really electric game in week 1. Fields made a lot of mistakes by just not dumping the ball off to Breece Hall. Breece Hall really didn't have a lot of opportunities to make anything happen. He had a couple more catches. He had 10 carries for 29 yards. His longest was a 12-yard run, but there was not much to be had on the ground. Braylon Allen was invisible. There was one catch from Isaiah Davis. He did have 3 targets. So the running back production was a non-factor today, and everything on offense was a non-factor. Garrett Wilson somehow comes across with 4 catches and 50 yards in a game where there was nothing to be had, and it's just because Garrett Wilson is a top-tier receiver. He makes something out of nothing. But the most alarming part of this entire game is that once things got bad, there was nothing new they tried on offense. There wasn't, let's do some more design runs for Justin Fields. Let's get Breece Hall engaged with the screen pass. Let's get a bubble screen to Garrett Wilson. Let's force the ball into our playmakers' hands. And they did not have any answers for that. This is a Buffalo defense that gave up 40 points last week, and you essentially score 3 points. They get the garbage time touchdown, but really you scored 3 points today. Another thing you look at is the wide receiver depth has been an issue since last spring. You came into the season with Josh Reynolds as your second wide receiver, which is questionable at best. He's also hurt now. He doesn't play today. Allen Lazard sleptwalked through this entire game. It's embarrassing that he's on the field. Arian Smith's a rookie. He's trying to find his way into this offense. They try to give him that end around that turns into a disaster of a play, and there's nothing doing there. Tyler Johnson had a catch, but it was just a no-show in the worst proportions for this offense. At the tight end position, there's 4 tight ends they could be trying to mix in here, and Jeremy Ruckert has 1 catch for that touchdown in garbage time. Mason Taylor had 2 targets. One of them was caught for 5 yards. It was just a disaster through and through. But when you look at this receiving core, I don't know what else you can expect. It is just going to be easy for teams to double team Garrett Wilson. Buffalo played this team like a group that sees the Jets twice a year. They know exactly where the ball's going to go. They're going to clamp down on that, even though they're not a very talented defense, and they made it look really, really easy. On the defense, what can you say? This defense is terrible. This defense is terrible right now. We see what happens when they can't get a pass rush with 4 guys up front. This is a really good offensive line for Buffalo. There was a little bit of noise in the backfield, but Josh Allen scrambled comfortably. Jamin Sherwood looks lost out there. Quincy Williams has another bad day. He looks terrible on the long touchdown run by James Cook. The most embarrassing play might have been he blew up a play after the Justin Fields fumble, and he does his uppercut celebration to silence. There was absolute silence when he did that uppercut celebration. Quincy Williams, who's looking to get a big payday, has not brought it these first 2 weeks. Stevens, again, gets cooked multiple times. I believe he has a penalty today, and on the tape of him on the Cook touchdown run may even be worse than Quincy Williams. At least Quincy Williams tried. Now he's not able to wrap him up, but Stevens kind of runs around the play, doesn't really get in there, and Cook scampers off for a long touchdown. Ironically, one of the players from last week who we gave a hard time to, who looked good this week, was Tony Adams. Tony Adams looked pretty good at the point of attack, had some nice tackles early. He leaves the game with an injury, which is unfortunate. Cisco had a couple nice moments in this game, but again, there was no real resistance from the secondary. Sauce had a couple of bad moments. He had a penalty that also led to a catch, and that was a rough look for him. And Michael Carter looked really, really bad, and then he got hurt as well. So this secondary, which we said was going to be a weakness, has looked weak. It has looked very, very weak. One positive you could take away is Jawan Briggs came in and had a pretty nice game. He poked the ball loose, but the Jets can't recover the fumble because the Jets can never recover a fumble at MetLife Stadium. But he looked good stopping the run. He actually was a difference maker. So the positives are few and far between. If you want to take a look at the punting, McNamara looks legit, but when you're praising the punter, things have gone very, 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 very wrong for this team. So the question stands, which version of the Jets is more like the Jets we're going to see moving forward? Is this going to be a team that can move the ball like they did against the Steelers? The Steelers, who looked pretty bad today. If you look at history and you look at this team, look at this roster and this talent, you would say this team is most likely more like what we saw today. And even though the Bills are a really good team, what makes you think that this receiving core is going to get better? Right, you had a whole offseason and preseason to prepare for the Steelers defense. You have a nice game plan. You block really, really well. Justin Fields is confident. Also, by the way, Justin Fields knows that defense too because he practiced against it for a full season. So maybe that familiarity is a reason why he looked so good last week and then just looked terrible this week. But the tape is going to tell you what to do against the Jets. Don't let them run the ball. Don't let the ball get to Breece Hall. Don't let it get to Garrett Wilson, and you're going to be okay. And if Braylon Allen can't figure it out early in this season, and there's no one else at wide receiver who's going to step up, and Mason Taylor shows more growing pains, and there's no production from tight end, this could get really bad really fast. Next week is a tough matchup at Tampa Bay. If you're playing the win-loss-loss-win game at the beginning of the season, you're marking that down as a loss. And then you're looking at an 0-3 team going to Miami on Monday Night Football, where Miami could very well be 0-3 as well. I think that's the game where Mike McDaniel is playing for his job. Overall, things can get really ugly. Another performance like this next week, and this season can slip away from the Jets very quickly. Now, here's the reasons I would say to not, freak out too much. The Bills are really good. The Bills know this Jets team really well, and they know how to prepare for them. They had a game plan. It was very clear. Josh Allen is the reigning MVP, and you lose to a really good team, and that's okay. But what's not okay is the no-shows. How many times do we have to watch this team just flat out not show up from the first snap of a game, full of penalties, full of bad preparation, full of poor execution? You have the same guys who make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And in this era of accountability for Aaron Glenn, it has to look different next week. You have to hope this Jets team is more like who we saw against the Steelers than who we saw against the Bills. I'm going to try to remain optimistic in that regard, but we'll have to see what's up with Justin Fields. If he has a concussion, how bad the concussion is, you want him to obviously be okay. Is this offense better with Tyrod Taylor? I don't think it's what we saw week one. It might be a little bit more efficient. He's a veteran, has been in this league for a very long time, but you scored essentially 3 points today when it counted, and that's not going to do it in today's NFL. You look up the points that were put up by bad teams this week. The Patriots and the Dolphins are putting up points. The Giants and the Cowboys are putting up big numbers. There are some teams that are getting blown out. We saw the Browns get blown out again, saw the Bears get blown out again, but there are points to be had in the NFL, and no showing on offense over and over is just completely unacceptable. So this has been the reaction to this game. This was not the game I wanted to see today. This is a feeling we've had before, where the Jets just have a failure to launch. But we're supposed to believe this is a new era. We're supposed to believe that things are changing under Aaron Glenn. I think the Aaron Glenn song and dance might grow tiresome pretty quickly, as it normally does when you lose. He is pretty coarse with the media, and his post-game press conference was a little direct, which is fine. That's who he is. I want him to be himself. But you can see this could start to get very, very bad very quickly if this is the team we're looking at moving forward. So try to stay optimistic. Another game next week. Get out of MetLife Stadium. Get away from some booing fans and maybe put together a more complete game. The defense needs to show up. Wilks' staff right now has to be feeling some pressure because this defense was supposed to be better, and it's not. The shine might be off the apple for Darren Muji as we look at the blemishes on this roster that have been really showing its face in these bad moments so far. So the Jets are 0-2 after 2 weeks. You can't say it's a huge surprise. It's a tough start to the schedule, but next week against Tampa Bay is going to tell us a lot about what the season is going to look like. So we'll take a look at the tape this week. We'll see some of the data. We'll see maybe if there's anything we missed. We'll see if Justin Fields had anything else going on with him today that maybe that's why he performed so poorly. A lot to dig into in what was a disastrous no-show for the New York Jets. This has been episode 13, a fitting number for this unlucky day against the Bills. Episode 13 of the Gangrene Against the World podcast. I'm Allan Simon. Thank you for listening.